Hello and welcome to another Mobalytics video. I'm your host Virkayu, and in this one we are going to be looking at the best champions for each role at every single rank. These picks are decided through a combination of what is needed to excel in that specific rank, but also what has good win rates and is performing well in the season so far. Every elo has their own idiosyncrasies and behaviors that you need to overcome in order to climb, so why not use the picks that are backed by data? And don't forget that the Mobalytics companion app and website has the best champion data you could possibly need to make these decisions as the metas change and as the patches evolve. But for now, let's start off with Iron and Bronze. Yes, in this case, we needed to combine these two elos not to offend anyone, but statistically, the majority of all the champions share very similar win rates in both Iron and Bronze. I think we can all agree that while you do notice an improvement overall with the player base, both of these elos are basically ensued in chaos every single time you play a game, and you need to be able to play accordingly in order to thrive. You're not expecting your team to understand a 1-3-1 or a 0-4-1 or various split push strategies. It's just the wild, wild west. As such, the picks for these ranks, as per our experts, are top lane, Dr. Mundo. We have Trundle in the jungle, mid lane is a Veigar, Misfortune for the ADC position, and Brand for the support fire that you need to carry your ADC because they are not very good. As we always say, death is the best peel. Well, I don't know who says that, but I main Zyra, so I say that. So why have we chosen these picks in particular? Well, Iron and Bronze is basically a free-for-all, which is kind of nice if you prefer those playlists in, say, games like Halo, but there's a lot of PvPing, shall we say. There's not much planning going on, and the games have a very messy feel to them. As such, itemization, scaling, and stat checking are the order of the day. This means we need champions that are easy to play, mostly point-and-click impactful abilities, and hard to play against when you don't understand them, or basically don't understand their various item spikes and level spikes. They also need to be picks that thrive in these constant skirmishes and aren't too heavily reliant on cooldowns. They also need to be champions that are able to fight multiple enemies at once, and we've all seen Mundo, Brand, and Trundle either chase people down, AoE them down to death, or simply just absorb all damage thrown at them, respectively of course. Not only that, they need to be able to snowball their leads very quickly. People think that simply means that they're very good early. No, a scaling champion can also snowball, and when you're a scaling champion that snowballs, you have more control throughout the entire game, not just the early phase. And that's another thing, you need to be relatively impactful throughout most stages of the game, so that even if you get fed early and you think, okay, we're gonna win this, and then your team throws, which they will, and then you invariably get to these later stat checky stages where everyone's full build and it's a dragon fest and you're looking for Elder, you need to still be able to actually control fights and control the game. I mean, junglers, you all know what it's like to sit in a pit with a Misfortune ulting from the other side. It doesn't feel good. And finally, they need to be champions that the enemy team will have to itemize against. For example, anti-heal against the Trundle, Quicksilver sashes against your things like a Veigar and a Brand. Armor, magic resist, you want to have hybrid teams, you don't want to be all AD when games go to 85 minutes and their whole team has 4 tanks, you know, that's not really ideal. And so you can definitely see all of these points within the picks we've had. Mundo becomes a late game monster, he's unkillable, he's unkiteable, he's unkillable. I have another thing to say about him? Well, he can change slow people, which is kind of irritating, but the point is you can dive backlines, chase people down, and protect by being a meat-soaking Destiny 2 monster. Trundle not only allows you to snowball very, very heavily against enemy junglers just by stat checking them early, you can steal AD from melee AD champions, which are of course very common in low elo, you can solo objectives, you can split push, and guess what? If the enemy has a tank, you say, wow, these stats is for me? As you subjugate all their stats and then you say, thanks bud, now I'm gonna run down your ADC. Veigar will require people to deal with you, and of course your Cage of Destiny is the thing that's being nerfed in the next patch, but what really matter in low elo? Because while you can't snowball, you will scale, and scale, and scale, and scale. Same thing with Brand, same thing with Misfortune, you're not very difficult to play, very easy to stun and do a lot of damage in all 3 cases, minus the stun of Misfortune. You can self-peel with your movement speed and spacing, and obviously all 3 of you are great at picks and teamfights. Literally everything you need to lane safely, snowball hard, and scale like a monster. Now in Silver, these things shift just a little bit. You've escaped the depths of Iron and Bronze, and things are starting to shift a little bit here. You notice the air is a little bit thinner, sun sometimes comes through the clouds, games are still fiestas, and there's a diverse range of champions that everyone thinks they're the best at. Players are more used to the game, they think they know what they're doing when they really don't, and a lot of them have champions and playstyles that they are becoming comfortable with and will know how to play very, very well against the picks that you normally would choose. And so we have top lane, Garen, jungle, Mercy, unfortunately, mid lane, the Fish, Ziggs as an ADC, and support Zyra, hello. Most of my channel knows I play a lot of jungle Zyra as well as support. Obviously I have like 1.5 million points on her, she's one of my mains. And while Silver Zyras do lack a lot of nuance in terms of how to play it, she does check off on all the reasons why we pick champions in this particular elo. And one of the first things is that they are fairly easy to play. Maybe not to master, you know, there's a lot of headroom there for skill ceiling, but they do not require advanced degrees to actually play. I would say out of the ones we listed, Zyra is by far the most difficult, but low elo players won't actually know that. They just think she's easy because it's plant, because they're not auto-spacing, they're not punishing cooldowns. She's a champion that frustrates, and that's the biggest thing out of all these champions. Garen, Marci, Fizz, Ziggs, Zyra, they all can frustrate and make it very difficult for the enemy team to do anything against you if one, they don't know what you do actually, and two, you just simply win the simple nature of your kit. Champions that are able to fight continuously benefit from these relentless skirmishing and team fighting elos, and that definitely still happens here, so all 5 of these champions are great at that. Like I mentioned, you don't need to be a savant to play Zyra, but she will just place her plants and people will fight around them. You will say thank you very much for that added DPS, now I can clean up from my pentakill. All while Ziggs is just DPSing from the backline with bombs, trying to land a huge AoE, and Garen and Fizz are just running around spinning and diving. And the oversimplified nature of how I'm explaining the team fights is because you really can't play them that easily, but it's because these champions run away with games when enemies repeatedly continue to disrespect them and think they can shut them down. Yi thrives here because he simply does not have the chain CC against him that he should in order to defeat him. Zyra wins here because no one thinks about her plants and actually playing around them. Garen, the same thing, he's a bit stat checky as well. He'll just spin into you, he'll use his tenacity, he will run away, regenerate, and come back into fights. And Fizz is so damn slippery and irritating that people are not going to be patient enough to actually deal with his kit, you know, waiting for those spells to go off cooldown. They will just keep throwing things at you and you can dodge them, and then you can kill them. I'm not talking about Ziggs because again, people try and gank you, you satchel away. People try and run at you, you just lay a minefield and bomb them. Just keep your distance and chill. And these champions, as I've just mentioned, have consistent damage output and lower cooldowns. They aren't crazy low, but they're gonna bait enemy teams into making overcommits, and you can always turn fight. That's the biggest thing that silver players don't really understand. Turn fight. Force them to chase you, use your cooldowns, turn around and just continue doing what you were doing. Disrespect must be punished. And to return to my caption point, the majority of silver and low elo players simply have no idea how to play against these 5 champions. They will consistently overstay, take fights when they're low HP, give Yi free kills, and then wonder why he's so fat and why he's getting pentakills. People will lose to Garen once and then just keep trying to fight him. The dude's spinning in AoE, they're just sitting there tanking it, they're not backing off, they don't understand what his passive does, they have no idea about the execute on his ultimate, they just keep trying to fight him and beating him, which is not a good idea. And by, you are exploiting the one governing principle of all of low elo. People have no idea when not to fight, and thus you win with these champions. Right, enough of that, you have progressed, you have ascended, you are now on the golden throne. You get a shiny gold border, well, what kind of looks like a gold border, I think they'll make it more gold. There was more gold in the past, now it's kind of like a washed out gold. Hopefully they fix that. But now you can start to have a bit more skill expression. The range and the ability of players definitely starts to change more rapidly when you get to this rank. Game's a little bit more composed, people have a lot more game knowledge than you would expect, still less than what they believe they have, but you do tend to have a large amount of experienced long-term players that don't take ranked too seriously. They play, they get their full rewards, and then they just remain at that elo. I mean, some people don't take it seriously, but you're full of people who are big-brain 10-year veterans. They might not be great mechanically, they might just play for fun completely, but they know what every champion does, and they technically know what to do, they're just lazy, because they don't care that much. And then you've got the players who do care that much and are really trying to get out of gold, and therefore we have picked, for top lane, the Crab bot, Warwick in the jungle, Anivia the egg in the mid lane, ADC must be Vayne, and Blitzcrank, or as I was gonna say Crit Crank, for support. Although I would master his core builds before you start flexing into Infinity Edge Blitzcrank. Now the reason we're choosing these champions is going to change the higher up you go. The champions in this particular regard are very oppressive when ahead, much like the other ones we've mentioned, but these ones are tenfold like that. Gold is all about getting a lead and abusing your item advantages. And to do that, you need gold. And in this elo, players tend to almost over-respect their enemies, and this leads to slowly giving up the ghost in games and gradually losing all chance of winning. And now I know what you're thinking, well, why did you suggest Warwick then? Why Urgot? That's because they can actually take over games when they are ahead, and people who over-respect them or under-respect them will simply be absolutely destroyed. You can snowball games very, very heavily. You can win 2v1s, 3v1s, 4v1s even. The goal is to take that lead, become oppressive, tilt the enemy, and actually you start to learn how to close games in this elo. In Silver and below, really, the games just go on because no one knows how to close, but here you should have a core idea of Heralds, Dragon Souls, pushing waves, inhibitors, and so on. And if you're playing Blitzcrank, Vayne, and Anivia, well, 2 of those simply just scale in an obscene way that no one can deal with, and Blitzcrank, it's just about that one hook, the one hook. The champions here also need to have an element of understanding and skill ceiling. Now, a lot of people think, hey, hold up, Warwick is easy. Yeah, he is. But his skill ceiling, his team fighting, his DPS, how much damage he can absorb, absolutely nuts. If you dedicate yourself to the Wick life, you will notice how in control you can be in gold. And that takes time, just like Anivia, just like Urgot, Blitzcrank, Vayne. They take time to not only become one with their kits, they get stronger and stronger the more knowledge you get and the more mastery you have. So these champions, you can push the limits as you go through gold because players start to main things a lot more in this elo rather than trying everything out. You have an idea of what you like to play. These are champions that also need to be good to solid to great throughout all stages of the game. Gold is known for its long 40-minute thrillers, less so than silver, but there's a lot more back and forth with the game. It's not really just a fiesta, there's just people not understanding the macro scenarios required, but your leads and your champion need to be functional in every single stage, and all 5 of these are. Whether it's a split push backdoor, whether it's assassinating backline, whether it's peeling, making a hook, simply doing DPS, chain CCing and obliterating them as you wave clear when they go Baron because you're Anivia. And so as you discover the foundlings of late game macro, you need to have champions that can go back and forth with whatever you want to do. Finally, these champions are picks that can really make a difference on your own. For example, if someone tells you you need a team as Warwick to carry, they're lying to you. You can buzz around the map almost like a Ramus, except if people overstay, you chase them down then kill them. Then you can solo an objective really easily. The benefit of having a Warwick, for example, over a Rammus is that if the enemy jungler is weak, simple, clueless, you can move into their jungle, obliterate them 1v1, lethal tempo, PTA, it doesn't matter. You can steal their camps and then you can translate that to your Urgot, Anivia, and Vayne respectively. You're infusing yourself with gold, removing the enemy jungler, and getting those laner picks that you like from this video really fed. And likewise, you will notice Blitzcrank, if the lane sucks, just roam and hit hook somewhere else. Vayne and Anivia have the ability to fend for themselves throughout peel or simply wave clearing, and Urgot is just a guy that can turn things around before you know it. By turn it around, I mean he can 2v1 the enemy jungler and top laner without thinking. But you've conquered gold, you moved on to platinum, and now all of a sudden the battle of egos begins. The skill gap in platinum is really diverse. However, what we can all agree on is this is the absolute worst elo in the game for arrogant ignorance. They think they know a lot more than they do, and they really don't. They have a huge ego because they got out of gold, but they really shouldn't. Some players will do it because of their macro, and some players will do it because of their micro. And as a result, the game does become a bit more reliant on that macro. It's not always good macro, but guess what? All you need to do is pull out one good decision here and there by yourself, force your team to play around it, punish the enemy for it, and you can actually carry a lot of games this way. Because again, they are focused on their ego and making those 1v9 plays themselves. So, buff your team, top lane, Shen, win game, win macro, jungle, Nunu, speed roll up and down the jungle, make sure you're ganking every single lane, make the enemy jungler cry to his mother, or as they said in the balance patch notes, Nunu and William instead of Nunu and Willem, so rip Willem. Mid lane Ahri for that solo carry, roam, charm, CC, assassin, whatever she is now, meta. Jhin because you can keep your distance in lane and obviously teamfight very well and snipe some kills of your own. And Soraka because she's broken, and because you can simply just exist, scale, and win every single game. Who needs macro when a bad teamfight is rewarded because you kept your whole team alive? Exactly. The champions we have chosen for this particular hellscape, they exist because they are reactionary champions that can hugely impact the outcome and the course of games. Not only through their own lane, but through their macro. For example, Shen with his ultimate, Nunu's insane map ability to respond quickly and punish, Ahri's voluptuous roam potential, and Jin's long-range contribution with Soraka's ultimate, as I have already outlined. To add to that previous point, these champions are also pretty macro-heavy. Nunu's objective control is unprecedented. Shen makes split pushes very unhappy with his ability to not only impact teamfights but also defend towers. And because of that, you get more objectives when you play Shen. You also are a Chad if you play Shen. And these objectives, these Dragon Souls, these Elder Drakes, these Barons, these Heralds for Golden Fusion, they become a lot more important in this elo as it gives you those advantages that allows you to abuse and punish the egos around you. As such, champions that allow you to get those will always thrive more. And so these champions allow your team to get rewarded whenever they make the right play. And they are also almost impossible to deal with when ahead for the enemy team because of that huge snowball, pun unintended, potential. Wait, the script writer has actually said that pun is intended, haha Nunu. Well then, that's what I get for not really adhering to the script. That's because I don't really script my own videos, I just talk a lot. And you know who else talks a lot? Diamond players. Yes, they always have an essay for you, they always have something that they can tell you that you are doing wrong even though they have no idea what they're doing anyway. And you're noticing the trend, yeah? As you climb up through the ladder, yeah, you learn more. Yes, you get better at the game, but really Diamond is sort of like finishing phase 1. Getting to Master now and climbing through Diamond is really where you learn the game, the intricacies, the small details that help you win games and climb. It's very rewarding to do for the first time, and you need the right champions to do that because mechanics really start to come into play. You're still going to need the clever objective priority where people will understand how to defend and roam, but you're going to need to understand your champion very well, which is why those core champion pools you've been using to climb to this point are really going to be rewarded. You need to know your limits, both in dealing damage and taking damage, so you can push them as hard as possible to make those wins. And again, it's against keyboard warriors, so mute, focus, and climb. To do so, for top lane, Riven, because she's also currently very broken. Hydra plus more of my Mortiers, yikes. Jungle, I'm always going to recommend Rek'Sai. This is where she really begins to thrive because you know how to close games, you have huge gank priority, you remove the enemy jungler from the game, you know how to use a herald and basically give up dragons if you don't need them. Rek'Sai rewards great jungle knowledge and aggression. Then you have mid lane Talon, obvious reasons, because shove and roam. Jinx for just hyper scaling and snowball potential from the lane, and support Janna because sometimes it's important to be the mediator to the keyboard warriors, and you want to be able to do that while still playing the game. So Yuumi or Janna, but Janna is very strong right now. So why are they particularly good in Diamond? Well, aside from the things I've already mentioned, in isolation, win rates, data, recent season success, all of these things start to factor in more. Pilots are becoming more equal in terms of their relevant skill, which means the power of the champions comes forth significantly more. It doesn't really matter if Caitlyn is meant to beat Vayne in lane and silver, the pilot will determine that. But if both ADCs are D2, D1, and they're quite proficient at their role, then it will become a champion choice about who's stronger and who wins the theoretical matchups. And all of the champions here are very strong in the win rate department. They just have the statistical edge, and if you understand the lane matchups that they're against or the jungle matchups, you will have that advantage already. And as Selfie has said, a German YouTuber, Diamond players usually know how to win games one way and one way only. They can do it very well, but basically because they do it so well, no one really knows how to counter it or play against it. So all of these are unique with specific ways to win games. Riven with her 1v2s and 1v3s when she gets ahead or when she reaches her item spikes, doesn't really matter, you know it's coming. Rek'Sai with hyper-aggressive early ganks to snowball and shut down the enemy jungler. Talon with the ability to shove and roam and basically 2v1 bottom lane every single time. Janna or whatever enchanter support by finding who's the most fed and making sure they don't die. These are champions who can completely 1v5 win ahead and when in the right hands. They fulfill their roles perfectly if played optimally, whether that's scaling and backlining and roaming like a Riven should, whether it's reckless on Jinx looking for their pentacle with those resets, using the slow and the zap, the traps, the AoE rockets all to perfection, and even hitting global ultimates by paying attention to the map. Or just in case you weren't sure, as I've already said, for Janna, deny the engage, peel like a queen. Emphasis on peel there, you're not always a flash insect Janna please. Shield and peel, shield and peel. And finally, you have escaped Diamond. You are now Master Plus and you've decided, you know what? The game is completely different. It's way more fun to be honest with you. However, the meta and the highest performing champions are far more prevalent, and this is where the one tricks really shine in full force because they know the champions better than they know themselves. They know how to play against every single champion no matter what, which means they're meta agnostic. They will just perpetually exist. Sometimes when the champions are weak, they will go down and up when it's strong. But when you play against a one trick here in Master Plus, you're playing against the best of the best. So what champions are a Master Plus player able to control, perform with, and use against these kinds of odds? Top lane, Scissor Lady Camille, because you can. Jungle, Fiddlesticks, because you can. Mid lane, Kiana, because you're more complicated talent. ADC, Zeri, because you're disgustingly broken, shouldn't exist, violates the game, please delete. And Senna, because not only can you carry yourself, you can also peel, chain CC, and have great map control. It also so happens when you're really broken, you will actually end up being the ADC as your ADC goes Tahm Kench. However, despite the memes, all these champions here are very rewarding when you truly know how to play them. People think Fiddlesticks is easy, but honestly, the unique way of clearing, looking for openings, playing around the meta no matter what, he's perpetually good because he's so malleable to whatever is necessary in order to win. When you truly know how to play all these champions, you understand their limits, the mechanics, the efficiency no matter what you're doing, attack moving ability. A Camille who wins lane using her Cho'Gath ultimate, shoves people out and then roams mid lane using her Hexagon Cage of Death to basically UFC the mid laner into demise. The Senna who sees a whole team walking through a particular funnel, hits a beautiful W and then Fiddlesticks just piles on. These champions all thrive and play off of every other champion in the game very well, but they also reward you with the ability to 1v9. And that does the second thing. You need to be able to destroy your opponents if played well. If you don't, they will destroy you and you won't have a lot of fun, especially in high elo. But the benefit these champions have, and I'm sure Zeri will have once she's nerfed a little bit and exists a bit longer, is that you have a lot of varied utility and or versatility depending on your kits for your team to play off of or for you to play off of your team. Chain CC, extra burst damage, follow-up engage, they all have something. Even in a completely doomed game where it looks like the Kiana is inting, if she hits that one crucial ultimate and your whole team can play off of that, you can win games from this. You can always be relevant even when behind, and with making the right play can end up winning. And that's because high elo champions need to be good in almost all situations. They need to be good at team fighting, early objectives, ganks and skirmishes, useful throughout the game no matter what. Domination, scaling, behind, you will always have a chance to win one way or another. And finally, in high elo, you see a lot of champions that you wouldn't normally see in the majority of elos, the 99%, because they are really pilot dependent. If you're a great player who understands either insane micro or insane macro, you will find a champion here that rewards either of those things or both of those things should you have them. There are of course a lot of other champions, like for the jungle, Fiddlesticks is really a good easy choice to say, but Nidalee is the shout out here because Nidalee is really only good in Master Plus. Even Diamond Nidalees are not something you really want to watch, but you watch a Challenger Korean Nidalee, you watch Kaz on Nidalee in solo queue, you watch Canyon on Nidalee in solo queue, you're just melting with joy watching how the fluidity and oppressive nature of the champion is just shown through high elo play. You will simply not find that below high elo, and that's why these particular champions can be so rewarding to play and so rewarding to actually eventually learn once you've put in the time to learn the game to the best of your ability. Well, there you have it, the best champions for every role, for every rank in the game. Obviously, every elo has different champions that can work. These are not the only ones you can use. If you find other champions that abide by these metrics and suit your playstyle, by all means, go ahead and play them. In fact, why don't you let me know in the comments which ones you want to play? For jungle, obviously, I like to see what you guys are trying. Keep an eye on the winner. It's using Mobalytics to see if this changes, as it will do, as it always does. Don't forget to subscribe for all the great content coming your way very soon. I've been your host, Virkayu. You can find me on my main channel, whatever you like. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.